People of YouTube, greetings and welcome to Sunset. This is a game that came out today. It is a game made by A Tale of Tales, which is a American-Belgian couple. They're also behind such games as The Path and Fatale and Graveyard, if you've maybe played that. There's probably only one other game by A Tale of Tales that I've played. But I've read and heard a lot about their other stuff. So, Sunset is a simulation, adventure, interactive fiction kind of game. But before I say much else about it, and we transition to a next scene, I have to say that this review is full of spoilers. Like it starts with a massive, huge, major spoiler. So if that's something you don't want to see, then you probably shouldn't be here. This video is probably meant for people who either don't care about spoilers, or they've already played the game, or they are not going to play the game and they just want to see the video for some reason. So, warning, spoilers to start. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go to the very last scene, because the reason I'm doing this is not because I just want to dish out spoilers, because the game doesn't have a save system, so I can't actually go back and show you different bits, which is what I would have done usually and what I usually do in my videos, but unfortunately I can't do that here. So I am going to go to the very end of the game, and I'm going to restart the game and talk about it in those two instances. So let's press this thing to continue. I think
it's over.
Yeah, she's going to start talking.
I want to sing. Doesn't even seem real. Ortega has convinced Miraflores to step down, so the U.S. troops are being called back. Our neighboring states are sending people across the border to help with rescue and relief operations. So now, we put out the fires and hold each other tight. We try to remember the way it was, and the way it could have been. And we work to hold on to what we've won for as long as it will last. Praise the Virgin, for she is blessed. A new king will come.
So this is the very end of the game, and seems like they've disabled reflections, which is interesting. Oh no, there they are. They are reflections still. Okay, cool. Never mind. Sorry, just a slight aside. That's our character. You could kind of see here. I don't know if the YouTube will let you experience that, but for some reason over there it's gone. Anyway, this is the very end of the game. This is the apartment where the entire game goes on. You play as Angela Burns, and actually maybe if I turn off the light, oh, there we go. Now there is reflection in there. I was worried there for a second. The reflection was gone. So that's you. You're sort of naked because you just slept with this man, Gabriel, or Gabriel Ortega is his name. And it's kind of the goal of the game, especially if you play it if you choose the romantic branch of the story. And there's two branches, the blue and red, or I think the blue and orange rather. So all the orange choices, like this one, to turn on the light, nudges the character towards the romantic stuff in the game, and the blue ones, like turning off the light, nudges the character towards the neutral stuff. The overall story, which is a story of a country called Anchuria. By the way, the name is taken from a O. Henry novel, or novella, maybe it's a novella, Kings and Cabbage, which was written in the very beginning of 20th century, and it's about a country called Anchuria. It's a fictional country based on Honduras, and there's a coup and there's a revolution against the coup. The president, or then the general, then the president of Anchuria, whose name is Miraflores, is also taken from the book. And you can actually at one point see the book like laying on the floor somewhere in the game. I'm going to talk about first, before continuing with the story, etc. I'm going to talk about, let's turn on the light here. So this actually cancels out my, oh no, now my reflection is here actually. Okay, cool. I'm going to talk about the mechanics of the game, and then a bit more about the story. Mechanics shouldn't really take that long because there aren't that many. You can walk around, as you see me doing here. Then you can crouch, this isn't exactly very useful in many ways. Sometimes it helps you to take a closer look at some writing sometimes. But that's pretty much it. Then you can also come up to the reflection and do that, because why not? So anyway, what you interact with the world, obviously, because it's interactive fiction. Like I said, the main story remains the same. There is going to be a coup, there's going to be a revolution. But your relationship with this guy, who could be dead because he's not moving, you can actually lie down next to him. There we go. The corpse and the lady. Alright, anyway. This guy is your employer. You work here. This is you're a cleaning lady. But what you do is you clean. You go around. He leaves you stuff to do. Oh, I can't turn on the candles. All right. He leaves you stuff to do. He gives you instructions, and you come every day here, and he says, "Okay, do this, do that," and you do it. But you can do extra stuff and look at extra things, and that way experience additional bits of the story. Also, so let's go down here. This is all now. There's so much stuff in here because of the war, etc. He was trying to hide some art pieces because he collects art and deeply cares about it, apparently. So I'm gonna go over here to the balcony bit. This is his study. Turning on lights is one of the major activities, which again optional kind of, but I mean there isn't that much else to do, so you might as well do that. And I'm gonna show you the world more or less. So this is where you see stuff happening. See, there's still smoke out there because the war is just recently over, and we're just gonna turn on the lights so you can see the place a bit better. You can use the telescope as well if you so desire. There's a piano, you can press a key. But most of the things you do are like, oh, put away this, clean this, do that. And every time you do that, you have two choices. You have the neutral choice and you have a romantic choice. I did a playthrough completely with romantic choices, so everything I did was romantic, and I ended up sleeping with the man. And I mean, the war is over. As I understand, I haven't done the other one because I couldn't. It was, this bit was exhausting in itself, so I couldn't really go back and do the other one. And there is no save mechanic, so you can't really do that either. Like just to load specific chapters in the story, you can't really do that. So I'm assuming from what I've been told, what I've read on their press kit, that the story, the overall general story of the country remains the same. It's just that you influence your relationship with the gentleman. Now what we're going to do is so I can show you those tasks that you need to do. Actually, these stairs are pretty cool. There we go. They light up. I'm going to show you some of the tasks that you will be doing in the game, or rather Angela does. Oh, this doesn't work anymore? Okay, cool. So what we do is we press escape and we start again and go to the very beginning of the game. Unfortunately, like I said, there are no chapters. These are the chapters, actually. I can show you before we completely leave this place. There's about, I don't know, about 30, 40 of them, 30 maybe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, so 22, 40 chapters roughly, and they're of different length, kind of, but I'll get to that in a second. So let's go back and, oops, that's not right, and start again. So this is the first day. This is how the game starts. You have your tasks. They're usually, for some reason, they're taped to the elevator. So you have to clean floors, move boxes, and open blinds. Every time you go up, she starts talking about her thoughts. And we're gonna let her do that, and then I'm gonna show you, what doing the tasks entails.
5 years at Harrison College, living on tips and whatever my Aunt Anita could save up. 5 years to get a piece of paper that says I'm an engineer. Also, I can clean this man's house.
Okay, so again, this is the beginning, the very beginning of the game. The first day is a bit different from every other day because the timer isn't really there, so you can spend as much time here as you like. The next days, I'll show you probably one other day as well. You get limited time to do things, so sometimes you can't do all of the things that either are given to you, or you can't do the extra things. So this time around, I actually had to delete the saves and start again, because if you just press start again, all the tasks are already done for you, which I believe is a bug in the game, so maybe that will be fixed, but it is usually fixed by going here and pressing new game. And another thing I want to do, I wanted to change her walking pace, which is somewhere here. Alright, there we go, because she walks very slowly by default, and it is very irritating. So now she walks faster, which is a bit unrealistic, but you know, it is what it is. So this is the town where you live, the capital of Manchuria, name of which I forgot. It's not exactly high fidelity. The ground is just gray and all that. It's very basic in terms of the outside world is very basic in terms of its presentation. So let's do a couple of tasks. So what we have here, let's do the ones that are given to us. Clean floors. I actually don't remember where that's happening, so we'll have to walk around a bit. And oh no, I know. I think I know where that we need to go for that. We need to go to where the cleaning equipment is. So there. This is the cleaning equipment. You can see we have two choices. The blue one, which is efficiently mop and disinfect the floors, and the orange one, carefully vacuum the floors and spray bright scent in the air. And like I said, orange gives you a romantic branch, and the blue gives you the neutral one. So, I mean, at this point, I'm not going to go run through the entire game, so it doesn't really matter. So let's say we do this. Time passes. During the first day, like I said, there is no set time really. You can do things as long as you like. So because it's kind of like a tutorial mission. So let's do some other tests before I continue talking about the story itself. I think that's it. Let's get out of here. No, what do you mean? No, we're not getting out of here. Move boxes. We gotta move boxes first. There, where are the boxes? Boxes are here. These are the move boxes. Let's take the boxes to his bedroom, for example. The sun hasn't set yet. I don't know why she's saying those things. This is a bit different from where I played, because there was an update last night, and I think it changed things a little bit. We can even make the bed, which isn't one of the tasks, but we can do it anyway. And then we can lie down in the bed if we wanted to. Lying down and sitting down, which is a mechanic in the game, makes the time go faster. We can't play the record yet because the record player hasn't been set up yet, I believe. That's the record player, or what, the stereo system, I guess, rather. She gets different outfits throughout the game. Right, let's finish the task. So, open blinds. The blinds in question, I believe, are... maybe these are not the blinds. The blinds are probably these ones. I swear there was a button here to open the blinds. Oh no, there we go, open blinds. Okay, and everything is done. We did all our tasks. After this, you can technically go, but you don't have to. Same applies to this mission and mission. The same that applies to this quest, day 1, whatever, tutorial, and the rest of the game. Except that today here, you can continue as long as you like, really. They're not gonna kick you out. So for example, if I decided to unbox kitchen stool, I'm gonna unbox kitchen stool. There it is. Kitchen stool is unboxed. I can sit down on it now. Then, for example, I could unbox chairs. She's gonna hum a bit, and there we got chairs, etc. So you can go throughout the entire apartment and do this, or you can choose not to do this. Another important mechanic, sort of mechanic, I guess you could call it that, is sitting in this chair here. So if you sit down in here, you start thinking, and that's a nice way of putting it. It's a nice thing to tie it to, because you're doing a manual job, or the menial job, and you can only think when you're sort of resting, right? When you put your bum down on a chair, and you can think of this as a sort of in a way a political statement. You know, people who work on their feet don't have time to think, and you need to sit down to have time to think. So that's a very nice thing to have in a game. Unfortunately, the things she said are a bit less nice in terms of how annoying she can become. I tried to play through the game while just letting her sit down in the chair every day to see what she has to say. And after I went through like maybe 60-70% of the game, I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't take it. So let's put her down here, and she should start writing. There's a strange thrill roaming through an empty apartment. You can notice the pace isn't very fast. I'm supposed to be here, but it feels transgressive, just the same, like walking into a church during the middle of the week and finding no one inside. Pause. The rooms are spacious, filled with nothing but promise, with anticipation. Pause. Maybe even modern homes are inhabited by spirits that will befriend you if you treat them well, etc., etc. So this kind of goes on like that. She's very pensive, and she talks about a lot of different things. Now let's go to the next day. I'm not gonna unpack everything else because I don't have to. I'm gonna call the elevator and go to the next one. So you can interrupt her writing your diary. Doesn't really matter. Every day is associated with some saint, I believe. So hence, there's like a date and a title. You get new tasks, and this time around,
The new tenant wants me to clean once a week while he's out. An hour before sunset. We may never even meet face to face, which suits me fine. There's a kind of peace slipping into this role, coming in during the off hours to restore things, wiping away the grime. I'm just another set of hands.
okay, so this is the real deal now. So you have the 1700, and by 1800 you will be ejected out of the apartment. You can leave before if you wanted to, but if you don't, you will just be kind of thrown out, essentially. And some of the doors will be closed, some of them will open. So you can see I can walk through here like I could before, but I can't really walk through. I can walk in, but this is closed for whatever reason, and this is going to be throughout the entire game. They're locked and open, I guess, kind of directing you back and forth. So if we start, for example, now tenderly polishing the silver with your own breath, which is it's a bit creepy, but hey, here we go. So you'll see the time is passing above in the middle of the screen, and you can see the sunset. So we kind of spent half the day doing this now, and they look more polished, I agree, but you have less time to do other stuff. The chair we were sitting on, now see this door is closed, gets moved around all the time, so it's like an additional gamey thing that you have to find where the hell it is if you want to sit down and think about your life. What is this actually? I don't know. The chair is over here now, so it moves around like crazy. It goes all over the place. So one of the Ortega, or the owner of the apartment's favorite activity, seems to be moving the chair around. Yeah, and there's tons of books, and you look at the books, and you can read the titles, and you get achievements apparently for the titles. There's 100 achievements in the game, and many of them are tied to, like, you looked at the book. And you can sit down here, again, have thoughts, etc. And this is pretty much the entire game. In terms of its mechanics. Now, in terms of story, obviously things happen. And at some point in 2 or 3 days, you realize that, oh, there's a coup, or there was a coup, and now we have a military government. Then it turns out of nowhere, as again you're walking around doing your stuff, that your brother is the leader of the rebellion. And this is very strange. Now let's get back to her background. So she's in this fictional South American country. As she herself says in the middle of the game, she doesn't really speak much Spanish. She grew up in Baltimore. Baltimore? Was it Baltimore? I think it was Baltimore, right? I might be mistaken, but, you know, in America, in a poor black neighborhood, and, you know, extreme poverty, as she says, didn't have a TV, didn't see a TV until she was, like, older, or something like that, and has a brother, and after she got her education, is a degree in engineering in America, she decided to move to a fictional South American country, where she doesn't speak the language, and started working as 1 hour a week as a housekeeper here. So whatever she's doing here is kind of unclear. It's never stated what is the rest of her time spent on. Is she a housekeeper with other people? Does she work as an engineer? It's sort of unclear. And even more unclear is how her brother, who she describes as, again, I can't show you all this stuff, so I mean, you either trust me that this is the way it happens in the game or don't. Her brother, who also doesn't really speak Spanish, and according to her has never really picked up a book in his hands, is somehow made the leader of the rebellion against the coup, against the Miraflores, you know, the guy borrowed from the Kings and Cabbage. kind of weird. And even if you sort of swallow that, then her attitude towards this is also quite strange. If you do use the chair, I mean, obviously using the chair is optional. You don't have to. You don't even have to clean anything. You can just get out. You can just go like I did, like one thing or whatever, and I can press the button and go. And as far as I know, there won't be any consequences for that either. But when she talks about, for example, there's a bit where her brother gets arrested later in the game, and if you sit her down and she finds this out by coming to the apartment and seeing it on the cover of a magazine, the first thing I think she finds out is that he is the leader, because she didn't know that either, sort of. And she's like, oh, I know enough Spanish to understand that he is declared the enemy of the state. And then and my immediate reaction was like, okay, let's see what else she thinks about this. Let's put her in a chair. So you put her in a chair, and she starts talking about art, and things that are completely like not connected to pretty big news of your brother being the leader of the rebellion in a country where he doesn't speak the local language. Later, when he gets arrested, it's the same deal. The brother's arrested, but she starts talking about, I believe, like, oh, how much crap Ortega has. I can't believe he's buying all this stuff. I bet he never even uses this stuff, etc., etc. Which is pretty weird, and it's sort of, it's not really a continuity problem because that also exists in the game and it's like separate, but it's the problem with, I guess, the tone. Another thing, for another example about the tone problem is if you are trying to go the romantic way, like I was doing, she says sort of nice things about him as you're doing this. Sometimes she goes like, oh, you know, that's very sweet. Oh, I guess he has a heart, whatever. At the same time, she will look at the garden, which is over there, but it's closed now, so I can't really take you there, and goes, oh, this is a garden, this is pathetic. And it's like, whoa, where is this anger coming from, girl? And there's this bunch of that tone problems. For example, when the guy leaves the messages, and he sort of slowly also falls in love with her through exchanging messages. They never see each other until that very time they sleep, where the one I showed you in the very beginning of the game, beginning of the video, the end of the game. That's the first time they meet. They only communicate through the notes they leave to each other. And yet he never says please. Like, there's not a single time where he leaves a note and says, could you please do this? He's like, do this, do this, do this. Are you okay? Okay, now do this, do this, do this. Your brother's gonna be all fine, I'm sure. And don't forget to clean the dishes. Which is quite strange. There's only one time that he actually talks with voice. There's a phone call near the end of the game where Ortega gives you a call. And that bit is terribly voice acted by some guy who seems very unsure about what he's doing. So it's quite unfortunate bit there. Another massive immersion breaking thing I had in the game is at some point she discovers encrypted documents, because it kind of turns out that Ortega works for the government, and she's kind of furious that, oh, you know, this guy works for the government, blah blah blah. But again, twist, he doesn't really like the government because he's kind of trying to do the best he can while working for the government, etc. So he kind of leaves the documents for her to discover, and so she can pass to the rebels. And then he also he leaves the decoding material, so like the folder which has the code to decrypt the encrypted documents. And she does all of this. Presumably all the documents are in Spanish, which she doesn't really speak, as she says twice in the game. And she has like enough knowledge, I guess, to decrypt the documents and understand what they mean, because she comments on that, and then give it to her brother within the hour that she has to clean, and also she cleans during that day. And at the same time, the article about her brother, which says, oh, you know, the enemy of the state, she can't read for some reason, because she says, oh, I don't have enough knowledge of Spanish to read the article. And then she says, I don't even know where my brother is. I wish I could contact him. Next day starts, she's like, I gave the documents to my brother. So there's a lot of continuity problems like that, and it's really sort of throws you out of the entire experience of like, hey, I'm living this story, I'm gonna go through it, let's see how this goes. My choices, I guess they matter a little bit, blah blah. Oh, I said one thing, oh, I did another. And there's big moments like that. There's the entire thing about the rebels is kind of important. It's the core of the story. It's the main thing, and yet it's mangled through like her responses, how she responds differently to it at different points in the story. The whole chair bit over there, that chair, is is she waving? I think he was waving. Is very contradictory to the rest of the story. So I would even suggest that if you do want to play this, you probably play this without the chair, because additionally to just ruining the story by saying contradictory things in the chair, she also sometimes goes on like this amateur cultural ruminations, I guess, like something you'd expect from like a teenager on Tumblr who is worried that if they're white and they're enjoying hip hop, they're doing some cultural colonialism or something like that. Like that kind of level of philosophical or whatever cultural studies discourse happening in a chair, and it gets like unbearable, especially because the text that she produces, you can't go through it faster. Like I can't. There's nothing I can do besides getting up to influence how fast she talks. I can't scroll through the text, and it's in a horrible font, and it's slow, and most of the time it's very annoying. So, isn't much I can do. Oh, I can clean up though, because I'm obviously the cleaning lady. What is that? That robot, by the way, goes all around the place. I think that's a reference to one of their other games. There are many references to the previous games. In generally, they like cross-reference their games in the. A Tale of Tales does that throughout their different games. I said games like 10 times. Sort of unclear, another unclear bit is about her education, because obviously she went to college, she has a degree in engineering. For some reason, with that degree, she decides to go to a country where she can't really be an engineer because she doesn't speak Spanish, and then complains that she works as a housekeeper because she can't speak Spanish or whatever, can't be an engineer. It's strange. So, but anyway, so she's kind of educated, right? She went to the college. Throughout the game, she talks about the mythology, and like, cause there are many art pieces that appear. You saw in the very first bit of the video, and she refers to them as like, oh, you know, this mythological thing and this one, and oh, I studied this in my college, and then this one. So it seems like she has the knowledge, but often she looks at some piece of art and goes like, ew, that's ugly. Well, I guess it's expensive. So again, the tone shifts, and like what her education level is supposed to be perceived as is just fluctuating all over the place, and it doesn't really sort of coalesce into a single image of a single woman, and with the some like ideas about the world that she has. It goes kind of back and forth. Like, for example, she knows Duchamp, right, and comments on Duchamp too, and writes a note about him in at one point in the game. But then, again, she sees another piece of art and goes like, oh, that's very ugly. What the hell is that? Oh, I bet it's expensive. And this is like a running theme that she complains about the art that he has in the apartment because, oh, why does he even need this? This is ugly, blah, blah, blah. But I am so cultured, I went to college. Weird. Very strange. There's also some sort of more, I guess, benign, but also disconcerting continuity problems. Like, for example, there's a point where Ortega goes away for weeks and weeks. He's not here, so she comes in here and does some stuff like on her own, because the random doors are opening or something like that, and she starts like putting up wallpapers and stuff like that. But while he's gone, and yet there's cigarettes burning in the apartment, even though he's miles away. So it's kind of unclear who is doing that. Then, if you turn on the radio, when you have access to it, it plays the same song every time you turn on, every day you come in here. Then there's a photo she finds of, like, she develops photos in Darkroom, because apparently she knows how to do that as well. I guess they taught her that how to do in the engineering class, together with where she was learning about Duchamp and all that. And there's a picture of her that she develops that she takes later in the game. There's a bit where Ortega asks her to photograph some art, and you have an option to take a picture together with the art, and that's the picture that you already seen 3 months ago when you developed some other film. There's another bit where he discovers some very important intel on the government, and there's thinking of, like, he's considering using it against the government, obviously. So, but he doesn't want to do it himself, so he lets her do it or I asked her to do it, and she has a choice of sending the intel or a poem by Rilke. And I was like, okay, let's send a poem about Rilke, because the Rilke poem was the romantic choice, and I was trying to go for the romantic storyline. And guess what? The documents still go to, you know, the right people. The war still happens. So your choice of Rilke there doesn't really make any sense. So through the last 3 or 5 days, he essentially is wanted by the government. They're looking for him. And yet he somehow manages to go to his apartment that everyone knows where he... I mean, this is not a secret apartment. It's a huge penthouse. Everyone knows it's his. He lives here. There's even a search at one point where she comes in and everything is like turned upside down. They were looking for stuff. And there's Playboy magazines in the drawer for some reason. And yet he manages to walk freely, leave notes to her all around the place, saying like, oh, do you play piano? Oh, by the way, I'm wanted by the government. Kind of stuff, which again doesn't really make that much sense. It's also unclear to me why everyone knows that... Oh, sorry, I'm going to restart the sentence. Why she's not arrested together with her brother, because everyone knows that she is the sister, right? They have the same last name, they're both American, they came to the country, they're probably registered somewhere that they entered the country, they have a visa or something like that. She works for a famous man whose job is kind of actually never mentioned what he does, but he has some kind of private company or something like that, or some culture involved stuff. It's never really mentioned what Ortega does, except for collect art and help government and then try to topple the government. And yet no one approaches her as in like, hey, why don't we take her and make the brother talk by, you know, capturing his sister? Which would be something that would happen in any country, you know, however authoritarian they are. They would probably, this is what they would go for. They would go for family members. But she is completely like, she's just left alone. The soldiers stop her numerous times, as she reports. Almost every time when the war starts, she comes into the apartment and goes like, oh my god, I'm late. The soldiers stopped me again. And she's never late, by the way. She's always on time, but she keeps claiming she's late. And no one ever figures out that, oh, this is the main rebel leader's sister. Shouldn't we really be questioning her a bit more thoroughly? But obviously that never happens. And the brother's fate is very strange as well. Oh, now we're going to get ejected from the apartment because the sun has set. You can see it's a bit darker here. But that actually is on. Is there no lights? Oh, there's no lights here per se. Alright, never mind. It's good. The brother's fate itself is quite strange. Because there's a bit where he's arrested and she goes, oh my god, they're going to execute my brother. And then for 2 or 3 days, or weeks rather, because she comes here every week, there's nothing. And then she goes like, oh, my brother, my little brother, he's dead. Then the next time she's here in a week, Ortega leaves a message, I'm sure your brother's fine. Then 2 weeks later, she goes, oh, I wonder how my brother is doing. I hope he's okay. And this is after making a huge deal about the brother being killed, obviously, as any normal person would. And she's like, this is the first time I felt hate. I hate the president. I hate his regime. I've never hated like this in my life. And this is it. This is hate. I'm experiencing hate. Hate. And then it's like, oh, wait, maybe my brother is actually alive. So it's never really determined whether or not he dies because of... oh, there we go. We get ejected out of the apartment because of being arrested pretty early on in the game. So he's not a very effective leader. Also, they do a lot of terrorist acts around the country, her brother, and she's kind of for it. She keeps justifying explosions. Like, they attack the museums and theaters because the army uses them as stockpiles and like operating bases. And they plant bombs around the city, and she's like, well, I mean, without blood, there can't be victory, or you can't make an omelet without cracking a couple of eggs, and stuff like that. And then, like, later on in the game, if you put her down in a chair at one point, she goes, groups, hate groups, because if you belong to a group, it means that some people don't belong to a group. I don't want to belong to groups. Well, yeah, and then she helps the rebels throughout the entire game belonging to the group. And in the same instance about talking about the group, she also says, well, the only group I want to belong to is the humankind, where we all are one, and for one purpose we do stuff. Hey, come on, Angela. It doesn't really work that way. You can't just say two things at the same time. And I don't know, maybe this is intended as like, oh, she's a conflicted person, but for someone who is so self-aware, seemingly, about her, I don't know, thoughts, situations, feelings about what's going on, she's never aware that she's conflicted. And she says, two very different things about the same subject, or it's about the same one thing happening in her life, which is quite strange. The whole second bit where Ortega goes away to the countryside to whatever, to plot stuff and do stuff, it feels like this was added later in the game. I'm not sure if that is the case. Again, I apologize that I can't show you all this stuff, because it's sort of well, it's possible if I were to record this and do another playthrough, but it would take probably another 8 hours to do all of this, and I don't have those 8 hours. Again, if I understand if it's not suitable, but it is a story-based game, and I'm telling you a story about the story, so I guess it's all fair. So when he goes away and does all this stuff, there's about, I don't know, maybe 10 times or 15 times she comes to the house, and it's the same messages in, like, because he's never been home. It seems like it was added later, because there isn't much else going on. It's just there sort of so that she can sit down in a chair and talk about it, or about what's going on. And, compare, I'll talk about the duality of art or life in general, how there are men and women, and, good and evil, and again, like, sort of Tumblr teenage angst stuff like that, which is unfortunate. It kind of drags on, and at some point she even says herself, which is quite ironic, how long will this drag on, and says that she wants to scream in the face of Miraflores, and shatter him through screaming or something like that, and calls him a motherfucker. I understand frustration. At that point, I was pretty frustrated with the game as well. I just wanted it to be over, just like Angela. So that was probably the only time I felt like we were on the same side. Angela and I were we just wanted the same thing. We wanted the sweet release of death near the end of the game, because it was just kind of dragging on and on and on and on and on. Like I said, I didn't even sit down in a chair anymore because I couldn't take it, because it was kind of the same attitude towards culture. In the 20s they were really excited about African things, and that's another way of colonialism, because they were using stuff they discovered in Africa, which is what people still say on Tumblr today. I apologize if I sound a bit angry while I'm talking about the game. It's because there were bits where I was quite annoyed as I was playing it. I do like the games that try to not be Call of Duty and kind of do something different, do something differently, be closer to, I guess, literature in a way. Another book. Do we get an achievement? I guess I already looked at this before. And every time someone makes or attempts to make a game like that, I'm excited, because I feel like, what if this one actually worked out pretty well? But when the main point of your game, the main focus of your game is the story, and it's a story-based, it's a narrative-based game, then you should really try hard for your narrative to, at the very least, be consistent with itself, to make sense in a way. If the character is contradicting themselves a lot, then maybe there should be a reason for that, as opposed to just it randomly being there. And there's stuff I enjoyed about the game. It wasn't a total frustration. The furniture is very nice. I like the mechanic of sitting down, and the apartment looks beautiful at night if you turn on only a few lights and then you sit down in a chair and kind of sit there. It's pretty cool, except that then she starts talking about the duality of art, instead of kind of really being worried, as she said she was going to be worried about her brother being arrested and probably tortured in prison. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's maybe the reality of life in Anchuria, the glorious country of Anchuria. The one game this reminds me of is 4 PM, and I also did a video on that some time ago. I guess there aren't really not that many current modern interactive fiction games, so they will one way or another remind you of each other. This one is obviously less goofy than 4 PM, because it never really tries to be funny. It tries to be the other way around. It tries to be serious. It tries to be about like social issues that are important, things that matter, and that's cool. It's cool that people attempt to make those games, and I like the idea of this game, to put it that way. I like what they were trying to achieve. I think what they were trying to achieve. But unfortunately, I don't think it worked for me, personally. I'm sure there will be people who will love this game, who will think that this is great, and enjoy it greatly. But unfortunately, I can't be that person, even though I would like to be that person. Maybe if I never sat down in a chair and I just played through the game, I would have probably would have had better experience. Her ramblings, their juvenile thoughts about life is probably what made me most annoyed here. Everything else is kind of okay. It's not too bad. There's still annoying bits where she like complains about art, or Ortega having art, while in the same breath like stitching hearts on his sweater. There's the way she tries to sort of woo him is also quite creepy, which is something I forgot to mention. He sometimes leaves her task, like for example, oh, I have a whatever, please mend my sweater. Or please would be obviously very nice. He never says please, he says mend the sweater. So she has a choice of just fixing it, or fixing it and putting a little shape of a heart on it, which is very creepy because she kind of starts this, because she never seen the guy, right? There's no, like, it starts out of nowhere. She starts doing sort of this, again, quotation mark, romantic things for the guy for some reason, and then he kind of responds, but in the middle of the game she's like, oh, what if he's gay? But then continues to leave notes like, oh, at some point he says, oh, sometimes I think I'm gonna go to the guest room and you'll be there taking a bath, and she's like, oh, maybe I will be. And I don't know, it's how I probably imagine my grandmother would flirt. Maybe it's appropriate because this is 1972. Anyway, on that happy thought, I hope some of this made some sense. Again, it's hard to show you much, and instead I had to tell you a lot, because there is no save functionality in the game, and wherever that is happening, doing a proper video is very difficult, and it's very unfortunate that some games do not include that. You can't just continue a game from any point for some reason, because obviously PC doesn't have that technology. But anyway, I'm getting angry again. Hope you enjoyed this video, hope you found that informative, or, I don't know, entertaining maybe, something like that. If you found it something like that, please consider supporting the video in any way you can, and I will see you in the next one.